Welcome back, everyone, once again to the British Esports Show. We've made it. It's season 2. It's 2023. We're here to deliver some more great content in the form of a podcast. Everyone watching, I'm here, of course, joined as always by Bryony. Bryony, Happy New Year. How have you been?
Happy New Year to you as well, and to all of our lovely viewers. I've been well. It's very cold, but that's to be expected for winter. Yeah, just raring to go and very excited for the future of the B Show.
Indeed, we should have some new cool things. If you watched our World Esports Day stream, that was kind of a preview as to what 2023 for the podcast might look like. So you'll see now exactly what that's going to look like with new segments, new guests that we're going to have on, and things like that. So it's all very exciting. Speaking of guests, our first guest for this episode of the podcast is none other than Kalam Neale. Callum, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi guys, yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. So my name's Kalam Neale and I am Head of Education at British Esports. Essentially, a lot of my work that I do is with all of our schools, all of our colleges, universities, and any external stakeholders or education partners that we have involved. That stems everything from the British Esports Student Champs and engagement in involvement with the teams, through to our BTECs in esports, which we co-wrote with Pearson and launched back in 2020. So, yeah, a lot of my work is really supporting those centres that are either already delivering to help them to increase their programs and develop the programs, and lots of work with onboarding new people and working with them in that initial phase to ensure that they can get up and running and that they know everything they need to know. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to kick straight off into our first little segment, which we have called the Rundown. It's basically going to be everything about you. We're learning about you, your job, and your opinions, basically. So kick it off. We'll dive right in. So what is the most common misconception you hear about esports in relation to its involvement in education?
I think it's esports, but it's also it's video games and esports in general. Is that people don't often really know what it is, and they don't understand it, and they don't fully get what esports is until they actually see it, until they're able to see it in the flesh, in person, and really engage with what esports is and what it's all about. I think when people talk to me about esports, they'll come in with this idea that it's just sitting down in a chair in a darkened room with the blinds closed, with young people drinking energy drinks and eating sweets and chocolates, and that actually esports is something, or the conception, the misconception is that esports is something that isolates you from the outside world, whereas I think that couldn't be further from the truth, and that actually when you see it in person, and I've experienced this moment multiple times with a variety of different people, with parents, with careers advisors, with teachers, with senior leaders in education, with Ofsted inspectors that are coming into schools and colleges to look at esports. It's that moment that when you see these young people totally transformed through these amazing environments that we're creating now in our schools and colleges, they start to see these skills emerging. Some of those skills are incredible digital skills, and the sort of digital competencies that young people have nowadays, they're coming to the forefront. We're in these educational environments that aren't like traditional classrooms. This is not rows and rows of people sitting at individual desks downloading the experiences of a teacher. This is truly immersive learning, and when you see it in a classroom, when you see it live in terms of competition in person, for anyone who's been lucky enough to attend any of our student champs finals, the noise in the room, for people that watch those streams, it's that moment, it's that light bulb moment that really people start to then understand. And when we can break it down, not just the gaming element, that's one thing, that there's immense technical skill, strategic thinking, that there's a psychological approach to performance, that nutrition plays a part, that health, well-being, and fitness plays a part in all around the performance aspects of esports. But then also that we've got this educational angle that takes into account enterprise, entrepreneurship, health, well-being, and fitness, which is truly about inspiring innovation in young people, providing approaches in the classroom that hooks into what they're passionate about, connecting creativity, and students really coming on board. And a lot of learners that we've engaged with in the past, they might have had a tough time in previous education. They might have struggled in previous education. We've got a complete mix of students from a variety of backgrounds that are studying our qualifications now. And it's those moments that when people see them in these environments, parents in particular, I've had some great examples of parents who've come to me and said, what's happened to my son or to my daughter in this short time since they started these programs. And it's because they're passionate about something and they finally found that thing in education that they've been searching for the last however many years that they love and that's fun and that's allowing them to study a passion and then gain qualifications and progress into careers in that. So there's a lot of things in there, but it's that initial misconception that people think it's just about playing games and that they don't understand that there's this whole competitive team-based activity that sits alongside that, as well as some of these real key education areas around business, around STEM careers, around sport, and around creative media as well. So those are the moments that I really love being a part of.
Yeah, I really like what you said there about I think a lot of it comes down to they've got to see it first, some people, to understand it. I know, like, when I speak to people about esports or even just my job, some people still think I work for EA Sports. They keep asking me how FIFA's going. It's like, no, that's not me. It's not what I do. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions, especially around the education side of things, like you've covered a lot there. And I think for a lot of people, in the same way that to experience like an esports event or even like a concert, thinking like more general, to go and experience it yourself, that's how the light bulb moment, like you say, kind of hits then. And so I think for esports and education, it's the same thing. Once you see how it works and that it's not just, like you say, people in dark rooms playing games, I think people are on board, I think, more often than not, pretty much straight away.
Yeah, definitely. And one experience that I had recently was spoke to a parent, actually came and approached me after I'd just been speaking at a conference and came sort of off the stage and she was there waiting for me and said, "Can I just speak to you for a moment?" I said, "Yeah, of course. What do you want to speak about?" And she said, "I'm that mum." She said, "I'm that parent who," she said, "I've literally just told my daughter that she's not going to college to study esports." So I said, "Why? Why is that the case?" And as it transpired, as we were in conversation about it, two of the lady's family members were currently unemployed, and all they did was sit in their house all day playing on games. So that was her relationship with games, with esports. That's all she thought it was, that it was something that people did in the spare time where they sat on a settee and just played games all day. And when I started to break down the curriculum and have this conversation that I've just explained, she had no idea that this is what was involved. So that conversation ended really nicely. She said thank you, and then that finished with her saying that she was going to take her daughter then to the next college open day to go and actually look around the facilities and speak to the teachers and find out what this was all about. So yeah, it's those moments that I think a lot of the young people that are now coming into colleges, especially that are looking at the BTECs or the student championships, they get it. They understand this. They totally understand what this is about. And one student that when I worked at Barnsley College previously, and we were doing this sort of thing, where we were speaking to students, and one student came in with his mum, and as he opened the door into the room, he said, "Mum, welcome to heaven, like welcome to paradise," and her questions were the same. So what's this course all about? What's it going to do? What can we do afterwards? So yeah, those moments happen a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on this a little bit briefly, but why is it that you believe then esports should be integrated into education, and what kind of impact can esports have on not only the students, but also the teachers who are teaching the courses as well?
I think that word impact is key for anyone who's looking at developing esports education programs, who's looking at integrating this into their curriculum, for any parents, careers advisors that have seen these qualifications now and they're trying to understand what this is all about. impact is one of the key words, and it fits into the Ofsted framework. You know, I've recently been through an Ofsted inspection in my previous role at Barnsley College, and led a deep dive into the esports curriculum, where we had an inspector with us for a full day, and essentially around the education inspection framework, they call it the 3 I's, which essentially is the intent of any program, the implementation and how it's delivered, and the impact. So those 3 things, I would say, are key for anyone who's looking at developing programs, in terms of why you're delivering these programs, what's the benefit, what are you going to do, why is there a need for it within your curriculum, first and foremost, or within your area. Secondly, then, how are you going to deliver these programs? What facilities do you need? What resources do you need? What relationships or partnerships might you be able to develop? What staff training may you need in order to develop these programs? And then impact. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? And I think what's truly unique about esports, as I alluded to earlier, in terms of the education framework and the curriculum element, is that this is a vocational qualification that's when it's delivered in schools and colleges, it's available for 14 to 16, and it's also available for sort of 16 to 19 age range. So we're really looking at that moment between GCSE leaving age and then potentially what you're going to do at college, which will either transpire and enable you to move on to university degree level, apprenticeships, or into a job, into a career. And the way that you do that is through vocational assessment, vocational learning. You know, this is not about teachers teaching people to pass an exam that we can just simply recall information and regurgitate it. This is about assessment through engaging methods, creative methods that are going to be called upon in your future life. So, for example, you're delivering presentations, you're creating financial plans for a business, you're delivering those as a business pitch, like you would in Dragon's Den. When we look at the sort of people-based, skill-based units, things like esports coaching, things like esports events, health, wellbeing and fitness, psychology, nutrition, you're working with people, you're working with clients, you're understanding those individuals, which that's developing a skill set. It's developing a knowledge base, it's developing a skill set, it's developing behaviors that make you more employable. So that is all having a huge impact, but it's a journey. You know, you're not just, it's not an endpoint exam where at the end of your 2 years you're going to either pass or fail. You're on that journey for 2 years or for 3 years in some people's cases, where you're learning about the industry, you're understanding the knowledge that you need from business, from sport, from esports, from creative media. You're studying a variety of units in there that you're interested in and that you enjoy. And that's developing you as a person. And we talk a lot about holistic development of the individual, not just preparing somebody so that they get a piece of paper at the end. It's absolutely about working with the person so that they're ready for whatever their next steps may be. The beauty about the curriculum is lots of vocational areas, they're just tailored to one vocational route of study afterwards. So, for example, as when I mentioned sport earlier and sports coaching, if you study a sports qualification, then you'll tend to go and work in sport. You know, that's the obvious route. If you study a business qualification, you'll tend to go and work in business. The beauty about these qualifications is because we have that mix of business, creative media, production, sport, in terms of the knowledge base, and esports all combined into one area, we're now seeing students, in terms of that impact, move off onto degrees, for example, in enterprise and entrepreneurship, into business, into law, into finance, into the creative subjects around production, around games development, around events management, and then also into some of those traditional sporting routes as well, things like sports coaching and psychology and nutrition and sports science. So it's really broad in terms of where it allows you to go. The other thing that I would then say in terms of impact, which we've seen directly from some of the centres and from the schools and the colleges that are delivering this, are the things that ultimately in education that we're measured on. And these are all things that people are reporting back are massively benefiting as part of these programs. It's things like the approach that we can take, that pedagogical approach, that sort of profound impact on the young person that them studying something they enjoy is then having on their engagement, or re-engagement. We've had lots of students who've studied other things for a year or 2 years, or have left education, who've now come back into education, or esports has been the thing that's kept them in education, that's allowed them to really engage or re-engage. It's like the accessibility of esports, in that, you know, esports doesn't discriminate. Unlike traditional sports, where at a certain age or in a certain gender you might have a certain advantage because of a certain body type, that's not the case in esports. It's simply open to everyone, whether you're old, whether you're young, whatever your gender is, whatever your nationality is, whatever your race, religion, you know, the list goes on. If you want to play, you can play. So there's a lot there around accessibility and making learning accessible. Seen lots of centres that we have that are delivering the BTEC that are doing some amazing work with young people who've got disabilities, who've had previous barriers to education, but through adaptive technology and through accessible kit, students now able to play, they're able to participate, they're able to be part of the team. We've then got these other measures, things like attendance. We had a story of one of our centres in the first 6 weeks of delivering this programme. For 6 weeks, they had 100% attendance, which is just unheard of. It's that community outreach that this is allowing people to do, that through units like esports events, for example. We've now got students in our colleges delivering esports events to primary schools and to secondary schools. And we had a case of a primary school who came into a college for an esports event, who said that their average attendance was usually around 85% for the school year, for that primary school. And it was the first time all year that primary school class had 36 out of 36 people attend.
Wow.
Was when they came to the college for the esports event. And then it's these other measures, you know, they're measured on retention, success, achievement, progression, destination. Esports education programs are proving in all of the centres that are delivering that they're getting some really high outcomes for these measures. So that's impact. You know, that's what we want to see. We want to see true impact on the people that are studying these qualifications, on what they're doing as part of their education, but then also where are they going afterwards. And we've got students now, because we're into the 3rd year of the programs being delivered, that they're now moving on to university, they're moving on into employment, they're moving on off into apprenticeships. So we're seeing that true impact now as well.
Definitely. And so, as someone who's sort of been both sides of the argument, not really the argument, but both sides of the situation, really, as someone who was an educator and is now working to push for further education integration, what would you say, in your experience, has been the deciding factor that got educators hooked and actually interested to get involved in esports?
I think it's developing more and more now, that as we're hearing these stories coming out from more and more centres and we're seeing more and more success, that's going to attract other people. But that definitely wasn't the case 2-3 years ago when we were taking these first steps. I think that the deciding factor is, and it comes back to what I mentioned earlier around when you see this, is it's the engagement factor. It's that educators are seeing how esports engages a wide variety of people, and people from such diverse and different backgrounds. You know, I've got lots of stories of students who've been studying other courses, studying other things, said to me, I used to feel like a geek, I used to feel like a nerd, I used to feel like I didn't want to talk about gaming, or I didn't want to talk about esports. Now, as part of studying esports, it's all we talk about, and we've all got this one thing in common that we're all passionate about. And I think from an educator's point of view, that's the biggest challenge that as teachers we have every single day before every single lesson is, how am I going to engage the people walking through this door? What am I going to do so that I can help these people to learn this subject, so that they retain it, so that they take it away, so that they see the value? And we want them to have fun as well. We want them to enjoy it. Like, we can't underestimate the power of play, of fun, of enjoyment, of games. I watched something recently around the human race and games. And if you take this back to tribal times and different countries and different areas, we like to play. as people, we like to play games, and it's just in our nature that I think I always use the example of if we were ever stuck in a lift or if we were ever stuck in a room for a long period of time, we'd probably create a game. We'd probably come up with something, and we'd get bored, and we'd create some sort of game or competition. Whenever I see sort of my old friends from university, that's literally all we do is we create games out of nothing, and we'll play and we'll compete and we'll find ways to compete with each other. And I think being able to bring that into the classroom has a huge benefit in terms of engagement, and that's that deciding factor that when as a teacher you've almost got this secret weapon and you go, why have I not done this in the past? You know, like, why have I not brought games or fun or play into the lesson? And you see the impact that then has on engagement. That's almost that secret recipe to success, where as teachers it's one of our biggest concerns. And actually bringing play in and a play-based learning model and bringing games into your learning environment, it's definitely helpful in terms of engaging the people that sat in front of you.
Do you have a favourite part of the qualification, or just a favourite unit in general of the BTEC?
Do you know what? The answer to that is probably no. That I don't have a favourite part. Hopefully by now you can tell that I'm incredibly passionate about it. I love the whole thing. I think it's brilliant. I think the beauty about the qualification is it's how you can combine these different areas, that they no longer need to be standalone, that you sort of go, oh, I'm more interested in, so I like this unit. But what it's doing is it's combining these different industries through esports. It's bringing in health, well-being, nutrition, psychology, fitness, diet, sleep, with esports events, with esports performance, with analysing skills and strategy. And then we're shoutcasting, we're live streaming, we're broadcasting, we're designing game ideas. Students are then going off and they're producing brands, they're creating their own games, and they're creating a brand for that game. They're creating an esports team or organisation, and they're creating a brand. Then they're thinking about social media, and they're going, right, as a business, if I want to launch as a business, how am I going to engage through social media? What are the different elements of social media, and what's my target audience? And then they're sitting back and they're going, right, so I've got this idea now, but how am I going to make it work? So I need a financial plan, I need a business plan, I need to actually launch my enterprise. And I think that's the beauty. That's my favourite part of the qualification, I think, is that it's being on that journey with young people and introducing them to some of these ideas that they may never have heard of. But then they start to get this appreciation of the ecosystem and why it's all important. And I think that's the beauty, is that we're starting to understand the esports ecosystem, but also it goes far beyond just esports. As I mentioned earlier, we're equipping young people with a skill set and an armory and a repertoire that's going to help them within whatever they decide to do next. And that's the amazing thing, is that they're all different, you know. And you speak to anyone now delivering these qualifications, some students want to stay in esports and they'll go off to university, they'll study esports, but some don't, and that's all right. You know, that's fine. Is that if esports education inspires a young person to want to go and become an events organizer, or to work in journalism, or to work in social media, or work in events or marketing or sport, or become a games developer, then fantastic. You know, that it's served its purpose and it's done its job. Is that it's acted as that step in education that was missing. Because rewind prior to esports education programs, you know, we had millions and millions of young people that are playing video games, that love it, that are passionate about it, but we're leaving school going, I've got this passion, but I'm not really sure what to do with it, because nothing really existed prior to this. You know, we had games design and games development courses, which are great, and they serve their own purpose and they're full-time study programs. But what we found, and what I found from speaking to lots of people, is that they were passionate about esports and video games, but they weren't really sure what to do with that. So they'd maybe enroll onto an IT program, go on to some sort of IT or administration apprenticeship, or go and study something like games development. And then once they were studying those things, realise that, hang on a minute, I'm no good at coding, or I'm not interested in coding. I don't really want to be a games developer. So I think what this has done is it's filled that void in between university and employment and apprenticeships, and then secondary education where it's allowing students to continue to study something that they're passionate about and that they want, an area that they want to work in.
Yeah, and I think just sort of going back to what you were just speaking about, and I sort of filled that weird gap in that I was finishing college. I was at QMC in 2019, and I knew I wanted to get involved in esports, but there was nothing. It wasn't even a thought at college in 2019, and I sort of set myself up. I go to university to study journalism because that's another great big passion of mine. And I knew I wanted to get involved in esports, but I didn't know how. And then all of a sudden, 2020 rolls around, and then the BTEC sort of comes up. Degrees become a bit more popular. And having those, whilst I didn't directly take those courses, having the knowledge that those courses were there really pushed me and really allowed me to sort of go, you know what, I can do this. There are careers. And while studying a completely different course to esports that was not even esports specific in any sense, I was able to, like you say, fill that void in knowledge just by knowing that there was other stuff about, there were courses developing, and that esports was a viable career option. So I think just courses in general, it's been a great development, but let's say looking in hindsight, I really do wish I could have taken those sort of things at college, and that probably would have set me off on this same path a little bit sooner. But I'm still very happy with how I've gone and been able to develop in the industry, and I know a few other people are following that sort of route as well.
No, I agree completely, and I think that's the beauty now, is that because it exists, people are now having this opportunity that wasn't there previously, and I'm exactly the same. You know, I think if this had existed when I was coming to education, I'd have jumped at the chance, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of the adults that we've had, that are sort of adults as in 19 plus, that aren't necessarily funded anymore for these qualifications. We've had lots of students taking out advanced learner loans to come back into education and study this. And one example was a student that I had, who was 26 years old, who had previously worked in IT, then became a chef because IT wasn't the thing that they wanted to do. And then during COVID, got made redundant and lost his job. And then during that time frame, saw that there were esports education programs, and he went, that's my route back in. That's how I'm going to access this thing that I've been passionate about, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And I think that's the beauty now, is that it does exist. And again, that sort of conversation is one which I've had with lots of parents, where again, when you take them on the tours of these facilities and you start to talk about the curriculum and the opportunities, we then move to that place of, I wish this existed when I was young, and parents starting to support it and starting to understand it, where previously they would have been of that mindset of, no, this is just sitting down playing games all day. You're never going to get a job doing that. It's a waste of time. And then they come full circle and they go, wow, I want to study this now. Never mind my son or my daughter that's coming to enroll at a college. So it's great to see that journey, and to see how far this has grown over the last few years. You know, to see how much the British Esports Student Champs have grown in terms of engagement, in terms of the amount of teams that are now getting involved in that, and seeing that as something that's been a fantastic engagement tool within secondary education as well as colleges, and then to see how the BTECs have grown in esports as well over the last 3 years. I think we've had about 5,500 students now over the last 3 years that have either studied or are currently studying the esports qualifications, which then again, in terms of career options and viability, one thing that definitely didn't exist 5 years ago was being an esports teacher. There's now a huge demand for esports teachers, and what we don't have yet is a student who's studied the esports BTEC, or who's been a part of the student champs in a school or a college, who's then progressed on to university to study esports, who's then stayed on to do a PGC to get a teaching qualification, and is now teaching the esports BTECs. So we're in that cycle at the moment where I have been speaking to one or two people that either have just left university that have been involved with British esports over the last few years, or are about to leave university, who are starting to ask me this question: is, what do I need to do to become an esports teacher? Or I've just started as a teacher of a different subject. How do I bring esports education to my college? And I think that'll be amazing when that happens, is that we're able to say that this person started on this journey 5 years ago or whatever it is, and then now they're actually teaching it to the next generation.
Yes, and so sort of pulling on things that you've spoken about and sort of looking into the future, so to say, like, what do you think needs to happen to get esports more widely recognized, especially in education, and especially with things like the Esports and Education Summit coming up, and potential for us doing even bigger and better things in the education sector? Where would you like to see esports go in an education sense in the next 5 years?
I think we still need more awareness. We still need, and part of what we do brilliantly here at British Esports is to raise that awareness, is to improve and increase the standards of what's happening around esports. And it's awareness at all levels. It's the people that I've spoken about already, but I think also then beyond that, it's awareness at government level. It's awareness with different bodies, different associations. When you look at esports on the global scale, and you look at other nations and other countries, and the recognition that esports is now getting, that it's being recognised as sports in certain areas, that that different esports federations are aligning with traditional sporting federations, just more so at the elite level. You know, when we talk about the elite players, we're talking about esports athletes, and lots of countries recognise their top players as esports athletes, and that's where it's a sport, when we've really got that human versus human competition at a high level, where we're competing for medals or for prizes, where it's so intense. And I think that recognition is, again, until you see it, it's something that people don't necessarily understand. I think we're in a space now in the UK, definitely, where we've got lots of other sporting bodies or organisations starting to look at esports and say, well, what is this? How can we actually learn from what esports is doing, and what's happening in esports around sort of digital engagement and the audience and the young people that are actually involved in this? So I think there's definitely a place there for sort of shared knowledge and opportunities to collaborate and to actually learn from one another. And I think that's something that can only help esports as well as it can help sport as well at the top level. At government level, around education, I think there needs to be more recognition around the benefits, around the impact of how esports can be incorporated into primary education, into secondary education, into further education, higher education, and these curriculum models and the benefits that exist as part of that. And I think still for a lot of people, it's still an unknown. You know, when you look at the size and scale of education in terms of the amount of schools and the amount of people and the bodies that are actually involved in education, compared to the amount of centres that we're engaging with, there's still huge room for us to grow. And what we want to do is continue to spread that message. You know, you mentioned the Esports Education Summit there. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for anyone who's within education or that works within education. And it doesn't have to necessarily be you're a school teacher. You know, we've got lots and lots of companies and organisations that work in and around education, where you might be starting to hear about esports and think, well, what is this? Where does it fit? Esports Education Summit is a fantastic way to learn about that, to network with people that are already in the industry, to see it firsthand. So we're going to have an esports showcase where you'll not just see the players. So that's one thing. But the beauty about the showcase is you'll be exposed to all of the other roles that actually, in order for a live stream to happen, in order for it to be broadcast, when we look at the shoutcasters, when we look at the team coaches and the production side of this and the event organisation, you'll get a behind the scenes access to all of that, and you'll see these roles and these things taking place. And then I think the networking opportunity to actually engage and discuss with other senior leaders, people that are already working within the space. We've got a fantastic agenda. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers that are from a variety of backgrounds, who are all really experienced in this space. It's the perfect opportunity to see that. And then, so that's in February. That's on the 10th of Feb. So again, if anyone listening there is interested, please sign up. You can get tickets now. They're available online. And then we've also got Bet Show as well. which is coming up on the 29th to the 31st of March. As British Esports, we're delighted to be working with Bet again, and we're hosting the Esports Zone at Bet, which we did last year. This year, it's new and improved. It's going to be bigger and better. We've got lots of different tech companies that are going to be in and around the Esports Zone as well. So if you're about to start that journey, those two places in February and March in the short term would be a really good place to start in terms of actually exposing yourself to people that are already in this industry, that are able to advise, that are able to guide, and so that you can meet the right people to support you on your journey. You know, we had a great example last year of somebody who came along to the Esports Education Summit in February. In June it was last year, and as a result of that. As a result of that experience, went away and said, right, yeah, I need to get this into my centre. I need to start this, and started to deliver esports in their centre. And then another example of somebody who came to Bet Show and said, right, we're about to start delivering esports in September. Not really got any idea what it is or where to start. Sat there for the full 3 days, listened to all the panels, took in all the content, met the suppliers at Bet Show. And then as a result of those relationships, went on, created a state-of-the-art esports facility, and is now delivering an esports education program, has got teams in the student championships. So they're two great places as well to start in terms of people that are thinking about coming on this journey. And then I just think sort of one more thing that is really going to help the development that is just the more recognition that this gets, and the more that all of our centres now can do to tell the stories of the students that are involved, to share the impact, you know, where students are going, what the destinations are, what their contribution is then into different industries. The more we can shout about that and we can tell those stories, then I think just getting that recognition more nationally is only going to help us to continue to grow and develop as well.
So to wrap up this little section of the rundown then, Callum, do you have any kind of final bits of advice for educators who are listening, they're wanting to start their own kind of journey in esports? That you've obviously mentioned about all these different events and networking places they can go to, but if you could just give one solid piece of advice now to them, what would you say?
I think it would be to do your research first and foremost about, the moment that you're going to take this to somebody as an idea, which is exactly what I did back in sort of back end of 2018, was take this as a curriculum development idea, is do your research, understand what it is that you're going to need in order to deliver these types of programs, understand the people that are going to come on the course. So speak to young people. They know far more than we do. The students that are going to be in these spaces, getting their advice. What do they enjoy? What games do they like to play? What technology do they like to use? Who do they follow? Really getting the input of the people that are going to be studying these programs as well. And then I think it comes back to that word impact that you mentioned earlier, is where are people going to go, and what are they going to do, and what relationships do you have already? Some may be in esports, some may not. And because the curriculum is so diverse, I think it's developing those links and partnerships with businesses that might be in media, they might be in sport, they might be in games development, they might be in production. They don't have to all be esports individuals. So think about where you are in relation to who's near you, what the sort of initial target audience of your programs is going to be, essentially, because that's who it's about. It's about these young people, and it's about transforming their lives through education. And I think if you come at it from that approach, is how can I provide something that's needed that young people are going to benefit from, then you'll see a huge impact. And it becomes a conversation with a senior leader where there may need to be a little bit of investment into developing some sort of space or facility or staff development. But ultimately, when you can see these models of success around the country already, it becomes a bit of a no-brainer. And I think it's just remembering that it's about that young person. It's about transforming their life. It's about providing them with an educational experience that's going to help them to progress to their next steps. And that's what we should be doing in education. And just to finish on that, I think one great example that I've got of really transforming lives would be delivering esports events into primary schools, as I mentioned earlier, sort of on both sides of the scale. we went out into a primary school, and it was our students that were doing the delivery. They were delivering play-based learning, digital curriculum, esports into primary schools to really sort of help to develop and upskill the teachers. So we were helping the teachers with their delivery model, but also to try and enhance sort of engagement in that class of primary school children. And there was one young girl who she was a selective mute, and when we went into the school, she was in a well-being room. She didn't engage, didn't come into the sessions at all, didn't come into the classroom. And then on the third session, we invited the primary school into our esports facility, and she came along and she wanted to see what that was about, and she was interested in it. And the head teacher just beforehand, she just said, she's here just to make you aware. She's not spoken to any of us all day. She's not spoken to her mum. We knew that she wanted to come. We could tell she was interested, and she's come along happily, but she's not said a word. And then it introduced me to this young girl, of which I then started to sort of think on my feet a little bit. But ultimately, these events were led by students as part of their events module. So one of the students in the class started his journey at college on a travel and tourism level 2 program, which he passed. Really quiet, really shy, quite disengaged with that as a subject. Quickly realised it wasn't what he wanted to do. Then came across onto a level 2 esports program, which he passed, but started to develop this interest and understanding. Then moved on to a level 3 extended diploma. So he was then in his second year as an extended diploma student, studying an equivalency of 3 A levels. I just said to him, can you just go and get a setup, get started? And within seconds, they were sat down next to each other. And what he'd done, it was something that we'd done in one of the lessons, is he was controlling the mouse and she was controlling the keyboard, and they were playing Rocket League, and it was all going wrong. But essentially, this was about trying to get her to communicate. And they were both laughing within seconds. Like, they were laughing their heads off. They were laughing at how bad they were at Rocket League, that they were using keyboard and mouse. She was asking him questions. And the head teacher, she grabbed my arm and she just went, "Look." And I said, "I know." She said, "Can I take a picture?" So she went and took a photo to show this young girl's mum. So that had an amazing impact on them as a primary school, on her, in terms of finding that thing that she was really passionate about. It broke down all those communication barriers. But then afterwards, when I spoke to my student and said, "How did you find that as an experience?" sort of in a really shy manner, turned to me and said, "Well, I've never really thought that I wanted to be a teacher because I've always thought I was too shy." And I said, "Well, you see the other staff that are with the primary school, they're here, they're working in support." He said, yeah, we're going to ask you that. What about them? What's their role? And he's now at university training to be a teacher because he wants to come back and he wants to teach esports. And I just think that's a great example of why we do this. And I think that comes back to that question around what advice would you give to somebody. It's doing that research and finding that reason that you can justify putting this into your curriculum, because it's about those people that we work with. And I think for any educator, for any teacher, that's our job. That's why we do it. It's because we're passionate about helping young people on their journeys. So hopefully that example resonates with some people. And I know from speaking to lots of colleagues now in esports education, anybody who's delivering esports will tell you similar stories like that. So I think it's about finding that reason to deliver it and to justify it, because you're going to then see some amazing transformation and amazing examples of what you're going to do with people in your classrooms.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Wow. Well, moving on then, Callum, we're going to move on to our next lovely little segment named the Showdown. Starting with this season 2 of the podcast, we will invite guests on. We'll challenge the guests to a game. Now, the catch is it's a game of their choice. Okay, so we've got Kalam on here today. Kalam, what are we playing today?
Well, one of the game that I've played for the longest is FIFA, which I do play other esports titles as well, but I'm not quite as good at that one because I've got 2 children now, so I don't have lots of time to play these games. So I think the one that I would always fall back on is FIFA. It's something that I played a lot at university and sort of beyond that, and it's also the first memory that I have of playing a game is playing FIFA 95 as a 5-year-old on my Sega Mega Drive, which I've still got. on a diagonal pitch, running away from the referee when they were trying to book you, and it's something that, you know, my interest in sport and football traditionally, it's one of those games that I've always played and I've always gone back to. So it has to be FIFA for me.
Yeah, so it'll be a 1v1. It'll be myself versus Callum. Full disclosure, I don't think I've touched FIFA properly in like a good 6-7 months. So this will be an interesting bout, I'm sure. But let's go and see how we get on. All right, here we go. It is England versus England. I'm not feeling confident. Like I say, I haven't touched FIFA in a long, long time. So let's see how this goes.
Don't start with excuses now, so.
Yeah, that's it. I'm in trouble. I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. Get it out! Rats.
Good start from Rat. Good start. Good start.
Okay, right. We'll figure this out.
I mean, at least I didn't square it across the box.
It's true. Yeah.
Across at least.
It was. Moving in. Moving in. Go on. Go on. Bah.
Settle down, boys. Settle down. Balanced approach, Sol. They're getting a bit giddy early doors. This is like watching actual England this now.
Yeah. Oh my days. Oh.
See what I mean?
Okay, go on. Leg it. Leg it. Go on. Through it middle. Oh, boo. Been tackled.
Good defending. Good defending.
Oh my days. You threw. Stop him. Oh. Keeper. Okay.
Big save.
Oh
dear. Not there.
Go on.
Yes. Panic stations at the back.
Damn it. Oh my days. My players are all over the place here. Stop him. Oh. No. Oh. What a shot. Damn.
They're just finding the feet, aren't they? They're just finding the feet,
That's it.
settling into the game.
What I have learned is I should probably stick to League of Legends for the time being as well. Probably shouldn't think about going pro in FIFA anytime soon quite yet.
I mean, League of Legends will probably be a different story, I think, wouldn't it, altogether?
Well, yeah, I'd like to think so. Oh my days, I'm being rinsed by commentators here as well. Stop him! No!
What a save.
Good save, thank goodness. Oh.
You're panicking me, Sol, here, every time you get it.
What?
Never mind.
Oh.
Hey, up! What's that one you just done?
That button I remember. Okay, that didn't do any good though.
Have you been doing skill move tutorial?
Yeah, I've been 10-minute warm-up before this, yeah. Oh, uh-oh. He's found the space, he's found the space. Keeper!
Again?
Oh, no! Oh. Bryony, do you fancy taking over?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You're doing better than I would ever do.
Perfect. All right, half time, right. Bryony, you've been watching. What am I doing wrong? Give me a team talk, Bryony. How can I improve here?
Pass the ball.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't play FIFA.
I think we need viewers' tips for Sol. Don't we?
Please, if anyone watching this has any ideas on how I can get better very quickly, let me know. Run. Oh, rats.
These skills, Sol.
Kane.
Now
Walker.
Oh no! Stop the man! No.
Oh, that was a dirty sweaty on that one, Sol. It's just instinct. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. Oh, go on. Right, here we go. Run faster! Run faster! Run faster! No! No! That was my moment.
Big chance.
That was my moment, and I've squandered it.
Keeper came rushing out. No man's land. There we go.
Oh, well.
Good second half display, I think.
Yeah, good effort. The only one goal in that second half, so I can't complain there.
Well, so that means for the first podcast of season 2, it is currently 1 point to the guest and 0 to the host.
Bryony,
come on, the guest.
I'll do better next time. I'm sorry, Bryony. I won't let us down.
So now we're going to cut to Billy, our Women in Esports manager, and she's going to give us a nice little rundown of everything about women in esports, what we're doing, and what you can expect from the initiative in the next month or so.
Hi everyone, I'm Billy and I'm the Women in Esports Manager here at British Esports. A couple of updates from us. Our community nights are back and they are every Friday from 7 PM, so if you'd like to check them out, be sure to join the Women in Esports Discord. Our Women in Esports pilot for Student Champs has also returned for spring, and that will be kicking off towards the end of January, so make sure to tune into our Twitch channel to support that. Some upcoming events that I've had a look at. British Esports Education Summit will be occurring on the 10th of February. Women in Games International will be hosting an event called Celebrating Blackness, Black Creators Who Forged Their Own Paths. And I will also be attending Arcadia Gaming Festival conference, which is hosted by the Biome Collective. Essentially, it's a Dundee-based collective working on technology, games and digital art. That'll also be towards February that I'll be attending that. So if you want to connect, just be sure to reach out. Some headlines on some top news stories that I've found so far this month on diversity and inclusion. Williams Resolve won WPC Women's Rocket League EU January Invitational, so congratulations to them. Me, Myself and Life is Strange True Colours was an article I came across about representation in video games, and it was just such a good read, so be sure to check that out. XSET's Erin Ashley Simon is set on a more inclusive esports culture. So again, another interesting one. And 1000 Dream Fund's All Women's Broadcast Her Esports Tournament returns in partnership with Padia Gaming, Girls Got a Game and Elf Cosmetics. So that was an over $10,000 prize pool up for grabs for over 120 players in a 2-day qualifying event. So amazing, great to see things like that also. And as for this month's spotlight, we would like to highlight everyone that was mentioned in our Twitter thread asking who's someone that inspires you in esports. It just kind of shows that there's a role model for everyone, and like no matter where you are in esports, you always have someone that you can look up to. So it was really nice to see everyone kind of sharing the love on that Twitter thread. And that's pretty much it from me. I look forward to seeing you next month.
Okay, right, and we're back for the final segment of the podcast now, the final news segment, which we will call the Cooldown. So with the Cooldown, Callum, how it's going to work is essentially we've gathered some questions, some a bit different questions, maybe a bit more personal, a bit more fun questions. In future, those will come from Twitter and our socials. So in future, guys, if you want to get involved and ask the questions for our guests yourself, please keep an eye on our social media on the weeks leading up to the podcast, which will be the last Wednesday of every month. Keep an eye out and you'll be able to ask any questions you want and we'll include them in the podcast. This month, we've got some questions for you, and we'll see how you answer them. So, first question we've got is, what's the best film that you've watched recently, Callum?
As I mentioned earlier, I've got 2 young children, so actually finding time to watch a film for myself is difficult. I think a couple of films that I've loved watching with my kids, I have to admit, and that's the caveat. Although I do actually quite just enjoy these films anyway. Would be The Greatest Showman, and
yeah, I like that.
I had we had at my nephew's birthday party. We had full renditions of some of the songs from The Greatest Showman from all the kids. So that's definitely one that's stuck in my head at the moment. And then Lion King as well. I think you've always got to go back to Lion King. It's a classic. It's an absolute belter. So we've spent a bit of time watching that as well over the last few weeks.
And what is, in your opinion, the best fast food?
McDonald's.
Good choice. Yeah, I'm
Happy with that.
I've been on a bit of like a Taco Bell thing recently. I don't know what it is, but Taco Bell currently is like McDonald's. I'd probably say is the best, just because that's easily the one I frequent the most. Taco Bell's on its way up. Taco Bell's not too bad actually. Xbox or PlayStation, Callum? Which do you prefer?
PlayStation.
Why PlayStation?
Okay.
That was quick.
Yeah,
that was fast. I think it again. It goes back to childhood, and it was being somebody who's grown up playing FIFA. There was very much a moment where it was, are you PES or are you FIFA, and are you PlayStation or are you Xbox, which became quite heated at points. So that's just where I landed. I landed on PlayStation and FIFA, and I've remained there ever since. I'm loyal to the brands. That's it.
So this can be personal or just a general esports moment, but what's your favourite esports highlight or moment?
For me personally, again, it has to be a recent one. And I'm going to go to the Commonwealth Esports Championships. It's something that I saw this connection between people who had never really followed esports before. That we saw people experiencing it for the first time. We saw those moments where we had grandparents attending with the grandchildren and watching something on screen that they'd never seen before and taking in and being part of this event. My highlight of those championships was on the second day. I went and attended with my family, so I went along with my wife and my two children, and I saw that firsthand. Is that, you know, something that I've been a part of for a long time in terms of an industry and something that I've been passionate about, to actually see that come full circle in the UK alongside the Commonwealth Games as part of that citywide event where the weather was amazing, the fan parks were amazing, the big screens, the things that the entertainment on the streets was amazing. It was a whole experience. Seeing that come more into the mainstream and seeing some of the amazing competition, some of the amazing moments in the games, seeing international players competing with their parents in the audience, draped in the national flags, crying and in tears when the children were winning gold medals. That to me is my favorite esports moment, because it's something that I've seen a huge development of it. You know, it's not one particular moment, you know, where you would talk about these amazing clutch moments in games, but as a moment for me personally, seeing that, being there in the capacity that I was there, being able to work at the event, and then also being able to take my family along, that was quite a special moment, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really, really cool event, and I hope that it leads to more UK-based esports events. We've got League of Legends MSI has been announced coming to London. Thank goodness we're going to get some League of Legends content in the UK. It's been a while since we had Worlds in London, not too long ago, but hopefully we're on the build some more UK-based events, I hope. Final question then, Callum, before we move on to our last little bit, is what's your favourite game that you've ever played?
See, I'm struggling now between games that I really enjoyed when I was really young and playing games like Sonic and playing games like Crash Bandicoot, which I just absolutely loved. You know, thinking back to those days of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, and as I said, Sega Mega Drive, playing games on there like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, some games that I absolutely loved. FIFA, as you know, I'm a massive fan of, but I think the one game that probably took most of my time and is one of the games where I look back and we had some amazing games with friends, amazing evenings, amazing nights, would be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And in particular, having a 4-way split screen on Rust, I think is one that I always go back to.
That's a classic. Yeah, damn. Yeah. What have you played the new Modern Warfare 2 by any chance? Yeah.
Yes.
Properly. Yeah. What do you think in comparison to the original?
No, I like it. I think I'm a sucker for campaign modes as well. I enjoy the campaign side of it just as much as I do as the online side of it. No, I think it's great. And again, it's one that has allowed us to as a group of friends who used to play the original one, but we do it in the same room, you know, we'd do it all together. Now, being off in various parts of the world where people are working, we can all get back online, we play that. And I think in particular the online nature now of how esports has evolved, and you know, we've got these big sort of online multiplayer games where it's something that when I speak to a variety of different people that I've worked with over the last few years, during COVID and during the pandemic, lots of people have said to me that they actually reconnected with old friends through playing games and through playing esports online, getting into these in-game chats, going into whatever the game modes were. And I think there's something quite unique about that, where it also provides a lot of connectivity and social experience that, people are having business meetings playing Call of Duty and all sorts of things. So I think that it's one for me that I've definitely played a lot more recently as well, and reconnected with lots of old friends from various different backgrounds as well.
Perfect. And finally, now this is a segment, of course, that is a classic British Esports podcast segment. It's not going away. This is definitely going to stay. It's this or that. And for this or that, I was thinking, I was trying to come up with something slightly education related, because I know a lot of what we were going to be talking about today was education related. And this kind of leans into that a little bit with one of the options that you could choose, but we'll see what you end up choosing. So, Callum, the choices today: read the book or watch the film. Do you have a preference between the two?
Watch the film.
Okay, explain why watch the film.
Definitely watch the film. Finding the time to read is something that's difficult now. As a parent, I think watching a film is something that you can also do with other people. It's not something that you have to do on your own. I think it's difficult to try and read a book with somebody else at the same time. I've always been one for things coming to life and for being able to see the sort of creative elements and some of the screenplay, some of the films. I'm a big fan of that as well. So I do like reading. I do enjoy reading, but I think it's something where you've got to really make the time to be able to think about when you're going to be able to read, which is definitely something I still do, and I still have a conscious effort that I want to be able to read and make that time. But definitely watching films for me, 100%. I would always rather watch the film.
Bryony, what do you think?
So as much as I like films and adaptations of, well, most adaptations, some of them can be a bit iffy, I actually prefer reading the book. I think there's a lot more details and stuff that potentially get overlooked or missed that are quite a big part of the story. And I know it's not a direct adaptation sort of link, but I'm reading the Five Nights at Freddy's books at the moment because I'm back at 12-year-old Bryony sort of era. No, but there's so much in there in the book that is not even looked at in the game. It's sort of hinted at, but there's so much more detail. And whether or not people like that because it's gory and there's a murderous agenda in the book, it's up to them. But I thoroughly enjoy being able to sort of immerse myself in the words. But I don't know if that's also because I'm a journalist and writing, reading is my entire life. But yeah, definitely reading the book, I'd say.
I think the bit that's different there that I agree with you on completely is the bit that I love about reading a book is you make it up in your mind, don't you? Once you're reading it, you're reading this string of words in a linear format. But then what happens once you read it is you create pictures. You don't see those words necessarily in your mind. Is you create pictures, you create ideas, you start to create the film in your mind as you'd see it, which is then sometimes really disappointing when you watch a film and it's completely different to the thing that you thought it was going to be. So I think that's quite a special part of reading that I really enjoy as well. I like that moment. But then can be incredibly frustrated when the film lets you down. It's not what you thought it was going to be. Yeah,
see, for me, it'd be, I enjoy reading books, and I used to read a lot of books when I was younger, less so now, and it'd be 100% a big fat lie if I said I preferred reading the book now over watching the film, because 100% I'd watch the film now in most cases over the books. But I have started. I mean, my wife, we've got them for her, but they're upstairs. We've got the Lord of the Rings books, and I'm really keen on sitting down and reading those at some points because the films are so good. But obviously, people say the books are even better. So at some point, there's a lot of books that I know I want to go back and read based on films that I've seen. But whether or not that'll happen, who knows? But there you go. But that's it. That does us for the podcast. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to New, the podcast for season 2. It's been a pleasure to join you here again today. Thank you so much to Kalam for coming on and joining us for this first episode. It's been a pleasure to have you on and speak about all things esports education. Bryony, do you have any closing remarks from yourself?
Sort of pulling back to what I said in the intro, really, is I'm really excited to see where this goes. We've got some exciting plans coming up for the year. We're going to be attending some different events, whether that be our own events or other wider gaming and esports events, so you can look forward to those. And yeah, just stay engaged on the British Esports Twitter, get involved. And anytime you see anything about the podcast, get involved, and yeah, just share any ideas, and we look forward to seeing what the future holds.
Perfect. Thank you everyone so much, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.